over and catch the YouTube. And I'm sure I will have to mute the sound as soon as it lights up. There it is. Oh, it's already muted. Perfect. And then I have to take the share and copy and over to Facebook to share it. Okay, I've done my duty.
Hey, YouTubers.
What? What's going on here?
Okay, so you were saying that I have to delete that file because
I don't know anything about what you're talking about, Ray. I would never speak freely when this thing isn't on. I would never do it.
I'm Sergeant Schultz and that stuff.
You wait till it's on, and
I
then
know nothing.
You wait till it's on, and then what you do is you turn around and you give it your full attention. Every bit of it.
The people deserve to know what I'm saying, so I don't say anything that's not here for the people.
Do you guys watch any of that debate?
Why you got to do this, Ray? I mean, that was all right. You know, I've been off the social media, so I don't know generally what people are saying about it. But I turned it on. I watched 10 minutes. I was embarrassed for America. I turned it off.
I'm trying to think.
I went away. Hold on. I went away for 4 hours. I came back and it was still on.
It ran for 4 hours?
Sure felt like it.
Wow, I didn't know that because I watched the introduction. They walked out. Biden smiled at Trump, and then whoever the moderator was started to talk to him, and then they started to talk over one another, and I was like, I'm not going to untangle your crap. That's it.
I feel like the impartial moderator was not really impartial.
There were definitely
like he favored Biden.
I mean, only by like 80 to 95%.
Oh, okay. So it was a bias there.
But Pat, having said that, like Trump didn't help himself. Like Trump could have sat back and made that guy look bad, right?
If he would have shut his mouth, which he's physically incapable of doing,
right,
he would have walked away. I watched it up until the point where Biden said Roe versus Wade is on the ballot this year.
Wow.
To which President Trump said, no, it's not. That's not something you put on a ballot or something to those effect.
Didn't he say elections have consequences? And then I turned to Melissa and I said, that man is correct.
And then he said again, yes, it is. Roe versus Wade is on the ballot this year. And I don't know if it was the moderator or Trump corrected him again. And he said, well, it's on the ballot in the court system. I turned it off at that point because it was the open discussion portion of it, which you're going to let those two morons have an open discussion about anything.
Yeah. Why wasn't it 2 minutes with one of the mics off, 2 minutes with one of the mics off, next question, or 2 minutes, right. 2 minutes, 1 minute response?
So I turned it off. And then I turned it back on just before when they were talking about white supremacists, and Trump told the Proud Boys to stand down, which I thought for a microsecond, I'm like, holy cow, he did something right. And then followed that up with, and stand by.
No.
And at that point, I thought, you know what? This is like, what side of the family jewels do you want to get kicked on, the right or the left? Because you're getting kicked.
So what I find most embarrassing about the whole thing is that I have been in situations where I feel like I'm legitimately arguing for somebody's life, right? I mean, years and years in prison, and I'm arguing against somebody who I don't like because I think that they're not looking at this person as a human and they're not doing their job to effectuate and all this stuff. I mean, I've argued these cases where somebody could go to jail forever, and I genuinely dislike the person and don't think they're being super ethical on the other side. And it's never degraded into that. It's never degraded into that. And I don't know, that was unwatchable. It's like if we all just started talking at the same time, if you're going to have like if you're gonna have the rules about 2 minutes, enforce it, man. Turn off a mic. Like you don't. It's like we've got this handshake agreement Pat. It's like us and a prosecutor getting together and kind of having a handshake agreement on what the rules of evidence are ahead of time. If somebody's not there to enforce it, then like what is that going to look like in the end? It's not going to look pretty. And that's just, it was embarrassing to me for America to think that these two dudes up there back and forth like this is how what's going to decide who runs this country for 4 more years. It was scary.
It was since George the First, since he debated Dukakis, I think that was the last time a debate ever had any impact on an election. After that, you know where you're going, and the debate does absolutely nothing. And I've been reluctant to watch him. I wanted to rip my eyes out and stuff my ears with cotton so I couldn't possibly hear or see another minute of this debate. It was physically, it was sickening and painful simultaneously. It was one of the worst things I've ever seen on television.
But you're still going to vote for one of them.
I don't know that I am. I didn't vote for one of them last time.
Since the election of George the First, I have been a write-in candidate for president every elections in that one and every election subsequent.
I wish you would have told me before this point, because I would revert you in too. That would have been
I
2 votes.
might write myself in just to keep the streak alive, because I can't in good conscience look at these two and say, yeah, I think this is the guy.
I think I voted third party every election, starting with Ross Perot, the first president I voted for. But I think I voted third party except for once or twice in my entire life. So, and I know, people who are in one gang or the other one think I'm part of the problem because I'm the one limiting choices apparently. But I mean, it's really hard to look at those two dudes and say, of all the smart, rational, easy to get along with people in America, that this is what our system produces. It's pretty ugly, man. It's really ugly. So
You should be ashamed. Anybody, no matter what your affiliation is, you should be ashamed of your party. This is what you've come up with? Really?
that's it.
Ugh.
Ah,
Just a kick in the. It is what it is.
Yeah. By the way,
Only the future of our country.
I just want to throw a little criminal defense spice into this because people have asked me about whatever her name is, who's maybe going to be our next Supreme Court justice. Pro tip: if your main issues are criminal defense, they're all terrible. Every one of them put on the court since the 70s, late 60s has been terrible on criminal defense stuff. So I can tell you, like, there have been odd bright spots you don't expect. For example, Justice Scalia, who writes Crawford versus Washington, like the only real confrontation clause case we have. So I don't get into the other issues, but from a criminal defense standpoint, I mean, it's like whoever they pick is going to be terrible for criminal defendants. They all are. Ruth Bader Ginsburg was not exactly pro-defense. She did a lot when she litigated in private practice, and I'm not spitting on her grave. Good for her. It's a shame to see her gone. But on the other hand, it's not like she was this lone voice of reason on the Fourth Amendment that was shouting at these other people who were just running people down. It didn't go down like that. So whoever
really, I was surprised at her stance on a lot of things of minority rights, kind of middle of the road,
right?
Native American rights, not really doing the Native Americans any favors. And certainly you'd think somebody with her background would be 100%, against the government on the Fourth Amendment rights. Not so much.
The last Supreme Court appointee who really gave a damn about that stuff was Thurgood Marshall. It's because he had a bit of a background doing what we do. And I can't think of anybody since him with respect to like Fourth Amendment, Sixth Amendment issues, Fifth Amendment issues that I would say is, has not diminished the rights that were created in the courts before. So, strictly from a criminal defense standpoint, I don't really speak to the other politics behind it, but put a pumpkin pie in there for all I care. I mean, whatever.
Not going to go too much further back. I'll tell you that.
What's that?
I said, you could put the pie in there. We're not going to, we can't go much farther back.
No, like it's not. I mean, look, think of all the fertile ground, Fourth Amendment ground we've had in the last 20 years, from cell phones to all kinds of interesting issues that could have popped up, and really the court has been hands off on almost all of it.
Signatures.
Yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. I mean, I know the Constitution protects your private papers, and I'm not saying you should say a phone is a private paper, but the other thing is, like, the role of cars is way more important in people's lives now, especially because cars contain all this information, right? And you have, in the old days when they decided those cases on cars in the 50s or whatever, you had a reduced expectation of privacy in your car, which is basically why the cops can search it for about 800 reasons. But the role of the car has changed, and nobody's revisited that, and nobody's looked at cell phones, and nobody's looked at, streaming content to your house or stuff that's going out on the internet. I mean, none of that stuff has really been, nobody's put any Fourth Amendment teeth into any of that, or even had any real analysis of it.
Unfortunately, I would be terrified if they did.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing, right? I mean,
take the devil we know, as bad as it is, other than what they would do now.
Yeah.
Well, it just goes back to, they should have written this stuff down. They really should have.
Somebody should have given us a roadmap.
Like they should have written down that we have some sort of privacy interest in our person, or like,
what would have been
papers.
That's
what I would have put in there.
What would have been even cooler is if, instead of our forefathers casting their brains out in the future and covering every situation, they would have given us a way to amend or change these rights or add rights, somehow come together on board and say, hey, we as people who can govern ourselves can talk about cell phones, and maybe we can put it in there if it wasn't covered. Wouldn't that have been nice?
Yeah. I mean, that's just a lack of foresight on their part. It really is.
They didn't give us any tools, Pat. They didn't give us any tools.
Didn't give us anything to work with.
They gave us a laser gun, and we're back pounding Flint right now. It really is.
They gave us the most advanced government in the history of the world, and they gave us the tools to keep moving forward with it, and we stuck it in the 1700s and left it there. That's what happened. I'm not saying necessarily that politically things need to be progressive, but I am saying that they did not envision that we would be so deadlocked along political lines that we would. Every state signed on to that document, right? Every damn state signed on to that document, but basically since then we've changed it, I don't know, another 20, 30 times. And there's a lot of questions that, instead of us as voting people coming together and answering, we're leaving to these court appointees. And really, I don't think that was ever the intention. So whatever.
Well, I would, if Ray loses his bet and Trump does not get reelected, I know they are just going to fill the federal bench with former defense attorneys and people looking out for the Constitution. It's going to happen. I know it.
Get your resume ready. Update your LinkedIn. They're coming for our opinion. Maybe not for us, but they want our opinion, right?
Isn't it?
Certainly they want our input.
Isn't it purposeful, though, the way that they select them? They always say, okay, we're going to pick somebody for the Supreme Court, and when we pick them, we're going to pick a federal judge. That's a common pick. If it's not a state senator, it's a federal judge. So how do you get to be a federal judge? Are you a private criminal defense attorney for years and years and years, and then you rise to the bench?
Yeah, that's the way. That's exactly how that goes down, Ray.
So as a result, I think that pushes the policy and pushes the understanding farther and farther toward the authoritarian government, where, you don't have a right to keep your mouth shut. You have to tell us, did you do the crime? You have to do. Why wouldn't you? Because you've been charged with a crime, that's an exception to the First Amendment and an exception to the Fifth Amendment, so that you have to tell us. I mean, that's the legislation that comes next. Well, now you're going to get a penalty for not telling us.
Yes, I mean, they put assistant attorney generals and things like that on, and U.S. attorneys in the federal, but that's not how it works in the state. They don't load up the state benches with former prosecutors.
No, it's a cross section of the of
The defense bar is, I mean, clearly the defense bar is very well represented on the state bar, on the state bench. I mean, it is. I mean, just look at our second district. They are just chock full of.
I feel like you're being facetious there, because it seems to me when I think of all these people's background, Pat, they all seem to be prosecutors. I don't know why
You're just missing them, Ray. That's your skew. Your skew.
That's my knowledge. That's a knowledge deficit that I have.
Yeah, you're ignorant.
I can think of one in my 25 years out here.
One on the bench now?
Well, he's on the bench now, but one that's been appointed.
Appellate court?
No.
There you goes heavens no.
Whoa.
No.
Whoa.
No. Not the appellate court. Jesus Christ, no. We can't have anybody representing us on the appellate court. That would be crazy talk.
I don't know about you guys. I've been getting these questions about who and obviously I vote in different jurisdictions than you guys, but who's up for retention? Should we retain? And
so I can tell you who's up for retention in my county.
Sure.
The Honorable Michael Fedier, and I could not more strongly recommend a judge to be retained.
So I was thinking about this because, like,
it would be impossible for me to recommend anybody stronger.
What people perceive as being what makes a good judge has nothing to do with what makes a good judge. And Fedier is a good example because I don't want to speak for Pat. I thought that guy was going to be terrible.
No, I did too.
But what Fedier does that not a lot of judges do.
He was a prosecutor.
He was not just a prosecutor. He was a prosecutor whose last words to me before I left the public defender's office, he called me like Wednesday. I'm leaving Friday. Case is set for Monday. And I'm trying to work the case out because I don't just want to hand the trial off to somebody. And he says to me, Matt, it's too bad you're leaving here because I really want to kick your ass on this case. That's the kind of, but, you know, if you think about this, like in the abstract, if let's just say, let's go out on a limb and say 1 out of 1,000 criminal cases is total garbage, and you're in misdemeanor court, that's one tough decision or one thing that should make you feel not great every 2 weeks, right?
Right.
I think it's higher than that, but your average misdemeanor judge probably doesn't put a like labor over that many cases in a week. But Fedier was a guy who, like, you could tell sometimes he would come in and he would make decisions that he probably personally didn't want to make, but felt that this is the way the system is structured and required him to act. And a lot of judges paid lip service to that, but you could tell that Judge Fedier at times was going to make rulings that, you know, maybe he didn't love the ruling, but these are what the words on the paper said to do. And that, in my opinion, would be the most important thing in becoming a judge. And that's not really, nobody runs on that. Nobody's like, you know, I'm going to be tormented by these cases. I'm going to hate doing what I do at times. It's going to keep me up at night, but that's what I think is important. And
I think that my endorsement is probably, it's biased somewhat because his current assignments in specialty courts, and specialty courts require somebody who asks questions, somebody who listens, somebody who has a pretty deep knowledge of how the law interacts and how psychology and how the person interacts. So you really takes a special kind of person to do that kind of work, and he excels at it. So he's in a job where I think that his abilities shine. Okay. But, you know, as far as retention, other people being retained in our county, oh, it's been fun. I can remember casting a few non-retention votes, but you know what? They always get retained.
I feel that the people who ask me what to go on on those probably end up saying no to retaining people at a much higher rate than the general public does.
Right.
Who else is up for retention out here by us?
No, I think
just Feats, right?
Well, the thing is that I obviously would see anybody who's countywide, but I won't see 3, 5. I won't see the other sub-circuits. So I don't know.
The subs are running for election. Feats
I
is
was
up
gonna
for
say,
retention.
it's not going to be a lot of people because 3 of them are up for election, right?
Right.
So it probably would have been, I don't know, McIntyre and Prather and whoever, right? But okay. You have thoughts, Pat?
I miss her.
McIntyre?
Rather.
Let's see here.
Are you looking up the?
I'm trying to see who's up for retention.
I know in here there's like 5 or 6 up for retention in my sub circuit.
All right. Well,
how many judges do you have down in King County?
A lot more.
You have more than 17?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's a lot more. Ray, there's 3. So there are, if you count DUI and DOMBATs, there's 5 misdemeanor rooms in the county that are all running at a much higher clip than McHenry. There's one in Aurora, there's one in Elgin, there's one in Kane Branch Court, and then there's a DOMBAT room.
I'm in King Branch Court and I have a DUI.
Mm-hmm. No,
I say I want a jury.
that goes to the DUI room.
Okay, so there's one judge that handles that.
There's one judge on DUIs, there's one judge on domestics, and then there's 3 judges that are broken up geographically that handle all misdemeanors, petties, traffic, and that stuff.
Okay, so
but as near as I can tell, Feats is the only one up for retention. The rest are running in contested elections. Davis is not up for either.
She won. She's in.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's the only one up for. And yeah, Mike and I were, like cats and dogs, but he was one of the few guys that actually realized, all right, I'm punching the time clock. Now we can be civil to each other. And that's something I think is a huge, and that's something I see. Justin Hansen was like that. Justin Hansen was
less and less of that.
right. And there's so many of them now that you get an argument one time, and then you say hello to them the next day, and they're like, "Why are you talking to me?"
Right.
We disagreed yesterday. And I told Feedier that. I said jokingly, but yeah, I 100% I agree with you. When he took the bench, I thought he was going to be a nightmare.
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, I can't wait to SOJ you. I already have them. I'm not even going to fill in your name. I already have them pre-printed. I said, you're going to be a nightmare. Joking around. After a while, when he finally got to the point where he was doing some contested, he said that. I mean, all but said, I don't like this decision, but this is what the evidence before me dictates. And that's all you can ask, man. I mean, it really is.
I did a murder trial in front of that guy, Judge Feedier, that took maybe a little over a week. And it wasn't just a murder, it was a stabbing. So there was all kinds of self-defense issues and a million witness statements. And by the time my client was convicted and sent to prison and appealed, the appellate defender found 0 issues. So all they had to go on was not prove guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. I mean, how often do you see that in a murder case where they just roll over and they're like, we can't come up with anything in this case?
Nothing.
And that was a case that, and my friend Bill Bly likes to point out, Feedier made a ruling on a jury instruction issue or something before lunch, and then came back after we'd gone to lunch and we thought it was over, and he reversed his ruling. He let it stew all the whole time, and he changed his own ruling without anybody asking or anything. And, he nailed it on everything.
I lost the trial in front of him. We brought it back. I had a motion to reconsider that I was going to file on the day we were back for sentencing. It was within the 30 days. I went to file it and he said, hold on. Reconsider it sua sponte. He said that, it's one of those things. He said that I got done and something just didn't feel right. I went back. I did more research than I did before I made the decision, essentially. And he reversed himself.
See, and this is the thing, like when people, you know, you hear judges and you hear this judge is pro-life or pro-choice or all this other stuff, but none of that really matters. What matters is, you know, do you put the work in to make the right decision? And look, every judge is not going to be on their best day every day. When you're not on your best day or you make a decision that just doesn't sit right, do you have the spine to come back and say, I was wrong and change it? And that's something that he excels at, which is being more concerned about being correct legally than worrying about if it fits into his molded worldview of how court should work or how the process should work. And I really wish we could get him to teach that to some of the other people up there.
That's why I've never been, and I haven't had anything in front of Hansen, but he was a very Mike Fedier-like type prosecutor.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, cats and dogs. And you'd walk out and he's like, hey, well, you got a baseball game this weekend? What are you doing this weekend? And it was, boom, you shut it off. And that, you know, that was it. And he had the same disposition as Feets did. And, you know, you guys know this, you guys have been doing this. I mean, together we're probably 90 years of criminal defense work. All of our cases, not all of them, the vast majority of them could be decided very easily. There's always an easy decision to make. Being a judge could be the easiest job in the world. You could always go with the easy thing, and that's not the guy you want or the woman you want. You want somebody who's going to make the right decision, and sometimes the right decision is incredibly unpopular and incredibly tough.
Yeah.
And that's what you need, somebody who's willing to do that. You need somebody who's going to take the slings and arrows that some of these guys have taken, you know, in the last couple of weeks, because it's the right decision.
And again, this is why it is crazy to me that there's a whole bunch of us who pay our mortgages on the idea that we're going to take the underdog, the guy nobody's rooting for. We're going to take the guy that has no defense. You know, we're going to try to look at this guy and put it into law. And I don't want to speak for you guys. Sometimes I have to argue for people or for positions that don't make me feel very comfortable personally. Like, it's just the opposite of what I want to do. Right.
Oh, if you're not taking the right, you're not taking anywhere near as many cases as you should.
Wouldn't it be crazy if that would translate directly into becoming a judge? Like, wouldn't it just be a crazy thought if that is important to being a judge, you started pulling people who are like living in that world constantly and have at least the spine to say, look, I don't love this decision. This isn't my decision. This is the law's decision. And this is the decision, period. Goodbye.
There are, and don't get me wrong, there are judges up there now that do that. And, you know, there's one that I have more cases in front of than anybody else because he'll do that. And there are times where I know he does not like to do what the law dictates or what the evidence dictates. But I mean, for the love of God, it's when you see somebody look at everything and go, all right, here's the decision, and it's the right decision. It's just, it shouldn't be as shocking and refreshing as it is when it happens. It should just be, yeah, well, that's what's supposed to happen. But it's not the norm, or at least not as close to the norm as it should be. So
I have two unrelated questions. Ray, why are you wearing a bandana, and why are you not in a hoodie and shorts?
I just got back from my.
This is our time, Ray.
I just got back from my.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Hoodie and shorts. This is like I live for this time of year. This is the best. Ray, why aren't you not in a hoodie and shorts?
I had a long day.
Till Thanksgiving, man.
You're not
And then-
even a real Midwestern.
Christmas.
I was fighting with bankers, judges, and CPAs all day, and now the day is done. And I haven't changed since I got home.
Ray, did these big bad bankers and judges and CPAs wear down poor Ray? Like, are you not used to fighting with people? Was that a very difficult day for you?
Oh no, I'm used to it. But as I said, it was just infuriating, absolutely infuriating.
It's when you guys were kids, you played football, you had the bull in the ring, which they don't do anymore.
Yeah, they don't.
Remember, no.
Okay.
They don't do the Oklahoma. Can't do the Oklahoma drill anymore either,
What's the Oklahoma drill?
where you've got either one lineman, one D lineman, a running back, and a linebacker, or you'll have 2-on-1 and a linebacker. You can't do that anymore. You can't do bull in the ring. But that's the day I envision Ray having. Ray just standing in the middle of the ring and somebody just going, CPA, bam, judge, boom, banker, boom.
Did they get rid of bull in the ring for concussion reasons?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Even though Oklahoma simulates actual game distance and speed and everything else,
Yeah.
and you could go scrimmage and do the same thing at the same distances. Oklahoma that's verboten.
I mean, bull in the ring could get a little stupid. I remember that from when I was playing football. Like if you're
Bull in the ring was just a big swinging, you know what, drill. That's all that was.
You could punish some people in that, but
Yeah. That's why I'm now going to spectate and not coach. It's a whole different it's a different era.
Listen to Pat Walsh realizing the game passed him by.
Oh no.
Coach Wooden,
No.
Coach Wooden, we still appreciate you.
Game didn't pass me by. Game passed by the kids and the parents.
Pat, I hate to say this, but it's a dying game I think in the United States. I think that in 20 years, I think college football is going to be dominated by Pacific Islanders and Central Americans and all, because it's not popular with the kids.
I think I don't know, when my grandkids, God willing, they participate in the greatest of American games. I think what you're going to see is it wouldn't be Crystal Lake South playing Central. It's going to be District 155 playing District whatever.
Like the hockey stuff.
Yes. It's going to be a conglomerate of districts or, conglomerate of schools, or it may be club teams. High school may just go away from it.
And that's going to be because all the kids who would have been playing football are now on the soccer teams, and there's going to be 2 soccer teams per school. Pat, would that make you happy?
Why you got to talk like that, man?
We're not a soccer.
I actually had that thought
In the
today.
future, when they're talking about football and they're talking about soccer, are you going to die a little bit inside?
I actually had that thought today. I'm driving home and I saw, I saw a guy throwing a football around with his kid, a little kid. And then as I'm pulling into my subdivision, I saw a guy kicking the soccer ball around. I'm like, oh my God, what if my grandkids play soccer?
You know what's weird, Pat? And I had a very similar thought. So I grew up in an area where nobody played soccer. And then we moved out to the far western suburbs where everybody played soccer. And I was like, what are you guys doing? What do you mean your church doesn't have a football team, a tackle football team? So I'm driving the Young Master Jedi around today, and I'm like, oh, how cool. Like there's a baseball team practicing right there, like a full on, it looks like they had 27 kids on the team. I'm like, how exciting that to see a baseball team of that size. It almost looked like the high school team, but not at the high school. So I don't know what's going on there. And then literally 50 feet later, there's a soccer field with 4,000 kids on it. And I was like, I can't believe,
Like there's a
I
baseball
cannot believe,
and then there's
I
a
can't
soccer
believe
team.
we're living in a world where soccer and baseball are competing, man. Baseball is the American pastime.
It could have been the high school team because they're allowing contact days now. The high school baseball team can get together. The high school football teams can get together a couple days a week. So it could be.
It had never even entered my jaded, closed South Side mind that soccer might be taking away on some level from baseball. Like this is it was a foreign thought till today. And I thought, man, I know if I can push my kid one direction, I know what direction he's going.
No.
Soccer, huh?
Nope.
Yeah, right, Ray.
No.
You seem like a soccer guy. Hi, Matt.
I don't, not only did I not play soccer, I've got 2 sisters that didn't play soccer, and I don't know anybody who played soccer. I literally couldn't tell you, there wasn't one kid I grew up with who played soccer. Every one of them played baseball. So
I mean, you put a gun to my head, I could probably coach most sports. I could probably figure out the basics of it. if you said, "Hey, go coach soccer or go coach volleyball," uh-huh.
Oh, I'd love volleyball. I'm all in on volleyball. I love volleyball.
I mean, I like volleyball. We used to play volleyball all the time in college. That's a blast.
It's a little bit of a
Yeah. But yeah, I wouldn't know. I would just, all right, everybody go, just blitz them. Just go. I don't think you're supposed to do that.
All right, Ray.
But yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
there's a chance the next generation of Walshmen may not play football, and I don't know that I'm ready to live with that.
But you know what's coming up that you will be okay with, Pat, and that's lacrosse. It's not football. It's not football, but if you want to watch kids getting after it, lacrosse isn't bad.
Yeah, and that's taking away a lot of football kids. That's dinging football more than anything.
Yeah.
And I would be okay with that. I would be okay if the next generation played lacrosse or hockey. I mean, they're gonna be at least a quarter of me, So basketball's not an option.
I don't know, Pat. I've seen those family pictures. You got at least one tall one over there.
Oh yeah, he hooped. He hooped until high school, and then
he's got power forward look to him.
Yeah. He hooped till high school, and then he just realized I needed the winter time is to throw bullpens and let my knees heal.
He had maybe kind of a Charles Barkley look where he's playing kind of above his size. Maybe he's not the biggest dude on the court, but he'll take that guy, right? Like that kind of attitude.
Yeah, that's T-Bone.
Hey, Ray, I love that you pulled this up because first of all, we get to talk about coronavirus again and laws and made up laws. And I just want to say two things and then we can wind Pat up and let him go. Here are my two things. This started in March. How come we don't have actual laws on any of this stuff yet, right? There used to be a legislature in the state. And two, while we're talking about this, Pat, can you explain to me why hockey no, football no, basketball yes?
And wrestling yes.
I hoop and I play men's rec hockey, and I cannot explain the basketball hockey distinction at all.
I have no idea. And now the wrestling I've been told is a yes. Did they said they're okay with hockey and basketball, huh?
No. Hockey was no, basketball was yes. So, I mean, in my thought is like go ahead.
No, you have more gear separating you and bodily fluids from your opponent in hockey than you do in basketball. Basketball, you're essentially running around in a tank top and shorts and banging the piss out of people, and you got sweat and spit and everything else flying. They're cool with that.
Like this is like, let's pretend for a minute that politics isn't behind this decision, but it's a decision of somebody who watches basketball and does not understand just how much bashing goes on in that sport and watches hockey and thinks there's way more bashing than there is. Because if you at any point touch a part of somebody on the hockey rink that they might have sneezed their hand into something or licked or something or rubbed their eyes with, like something went really, really bad. But in basketball, what's that?
I was telling Ray, go back to that.
In basketball, every dude on the court is touching some other dude on the court every time up and down the court, and you're breathing in people's faces nonstop.
Yes. Ray, pull that football back up. That highlighted portion.
Yes, sir. Hold on.
I'm going to deep breathe before that comes back up.
You're going to deep breathe before that comes back up.
Try and calm down.
They've issued a series of guidelines that alter the 2021 sports season, mandated by the bylaws. The guidelines include an outright ban on certain sports during the time periods to which the IHSA bylaws limit those sports.
No, that's not. We keep going. This is what he's looking for.
Legislative process.
Yeah, this is what he's looking for.
Yeah. He's looking for these words right here. The legislative.
It seems to be a common theme among the great state of Illinois, starting with the Honorable Fred, all the way down through the state agencies. They just came out in Pritzker, and I still, to this day, have not seen anything that gives him the authority to do what he did. Now, the IHSA is going to say, okay, well, we're going to defer to the Department of Public Health, and the Department of Public Health is a rubber stamp for Flintstone. How can you possibly tell me that these kids can't play football, but they can wrestle and they can play basketball?
Well, wrestling is
Just
kids.
because it's arbitrary. Now, don't get me wrong. We're playing the hell out of baseball in the fall, and I'm happy for that. I am. And I get it. I get it. Football could have been a little bit tricky because you get one team that tests positive, the team that played them the week before, they're shut down. You're losing 4 teams. 2 teams test positive. You're going to lose 8 teams in a conference, and pretty soon you're not going to have a conference. I get it. But you know what? This is here to stay. Are we going to say that forever and ever and ever until everybody's vaccinated and this thing is eradicated that we're not going to play any sports?
So for the sake of argument, which is a position I never take, because I would never do that. But
you're not very contrarian. I know.
For the sake of argument, what about the idea that the distinction between football and basketball? And again, I know football has close contact, but again, I don't think your face is getting breathed on as much in football as it is in basketball. And people who doubt that really need to get out on the court. But the one of the things that is different in football, I think, if you take the game situations out and you go into practices, you are not, you're working out. I don't know what's a high school football team, 40 kids?
Out here, yeah, 40 to. I mean, Huntley has 100 and some, but South is generally high 30s to.
Do they have 40s. A limit? Is it set per number of students, or they don't set it? They just go running whatever team you want.
No, but my point is,
you have
your average basketball team has 12 kids. Maybe 3 kids were injured or whatever. Maybe you go down to freshmen and you've got 30 kids, but of those 12 kids, basically when you're scrimmaging and you're not doing that most of your practice, you're running drills, you're only running 10 of them. And when it comes to a game, you're really only playing 7 or 8 kids. So if you look at it not from a contact standpoint, but from the number of kids being exposed to what number of new kids out there, in basketball, you're usually looking at 7 or 8 times 7 or 8 on the other side per game. In football, you're probably realistically playing 16 kids at a minimum. It's probably more like, 30 of those kids are getting on the field at some point. That just the raw numbers. Do you think that contributes to the distinction in these sports? I mean, look, there's nothing worse than wrestling for this, but wrestling is also one-on-one.
Were they not going back to school? I would agree with you.
That's a good point.
Or are they going back to school?
Yeah, I think they're going back to school here in a couple weeks. I want to say the 15th or something. It's going to be hybrid. It's going to be hybrid. They're going to be 3 days there, 2 days off.
Wait a second. When it's 3 days on, is it everybody in school going 3 days on?
No, they're gonna do. I think, and this is what the original plan was. Your A group will go. Your A group will start the week, and they'll go 3 days, and then B group will be e-learning 2 days. And then B group will go 3. A will e-learn 2 days.
Okay.
I think this kind of underscores what you've been saying since day one, Pat, which is like, I know the IHSA legislative process is not like a government body, like a real government body, but like whenever you skip the traditional legislative process, the way we have it set up, nothing is transparent. Nothing is open to discussion. Nothing's open to other ideas. Nothing's open to debate. I guess in theory, there could be less political forces on it as well. But we're now going on 6 months of basically unquestioned decision making or open decision making. And the reality is that our Constitution allowed the governor 30 days of this, and he just keeps reappointing his own self. Yeah. At what point?
There was no limitation on him extending the 30 days.
Hold on a second.
Of course, he never extended the 30 days. There's no limitation on it.
I'm not going to ask the question you think I'm going to ask. I'm going to go beyond that. Illinois, which for a long time was at least had a Republican governor and had a strong Republican influence. At what point does the balance of power in this state flip back and the Democrats start complaining that the Republicans who are doing this crap have no authority to do it? That's what I want to know. What year is that? 2024?
Yeah,
I mean,
100%.
Well, I think
Even-
Madigan's out
even
by
people-
2024.
Even people I know who would never think of voting Republican are losing their mind at the way the state is handling it. The sports, the school, everything. It's now done by decree. It's proclamation. There hasn't been any legislative process. I mean, in the IHSA is just, a mirror of how the entire state has gone. This is what I say. This is what we're going to do.
it's like when you watch those debate early and those debates, everybody was talking about, I will do on day one, I'm going to enter this executive order that solves or creates this problem. And it's kind of like, maybe at this point we need to get away from executive orders. Like maybe we don't need an executive order that solves a problem. We need less executive orders. It's the same kind of thing. That's basically what's going on in Illinois.
Well, I mean, yeah, maybe things should be run the way the federal and state constitution envisioned it. Maybe there should be, somebody to, I don't know, balance something or maybe check the unfettered power that one branch is exercising.
You feel like there should be a balance to that. I'm
Almost.
surprised they didn't figure that out, or they didn't.
Again,
Yeah, that-
total lack of foresight by our founders. I'm just
Well,
disgusted at the complete lack of effort and energy they put into this.
Our state constitution was only last redone in 1976. So they had no idea that we would be living in a world with like viruses then.
Yeah, it's a relatively novel concept.
Yeah.
What happened there in the beginning of September? That seems a little.
I was looking at that. There was a day that was 5,000, but Matt talked to this a while ago. It really is reporting. If you get a weekend with a holiday, everybody shipped
September. Yeah,
they
Labor Day.
shipped the numbers, and all the numbers normally were like 2,000. So when they had the $5,400 day, it's hard to and I'll go back and get it, Illinois back up here. It's hard to give that number any kind of credence because right there, like for instance, right here, it's 2,200 on this particular day. It's 5,700, but is it a double reported day? I don't know.
That's right
why
around Labor Day too.
These should all just be rolling averages. I mean, it's ridiculous, but
I'll tell you what, the thing is that as far as graphs go, I mean, doesn't this graph say problem sort of solved?
this is funny. I put a lot of research into this yesterday because I'm trying to figure out, and I can't find a definitive answer. Is the virus getting weaker? Are we just testing so many more people that we're going to have a baseline number of whatever? Or are we better at treating the people who have it, or a combination of it? And what's funny is when you flip to Wisconsin, Ray, flip to the Wisconsin now.
Okay.
So I don't know if you guys have seen the news out of Wisconsin, but
Thanks, Scoob.
Wisconsin is basically saying that northern Wisconsin is saying we're at crisis levels now. We have hospitals that are overrun, and then we're expecting in the next 2 to 3 weeks to have a serious problem where we're putting people in hallways and stuff. And their number, which has kind of been level since, April or whatever, is starting to go up as far as deaths. So
Can't they ship those?
To where?
Who wants them?
Hold on a second.
Okay, fine. Who wants them? But the thing is that you saw Illinois' numbers. They didn't look horrible.
Yeah, but Ray, like, let's take, for example, Antigo, Wisconsin, the county seat of Langlade County. The county has 17,000 people. The local hospital probably has 50 beds on a good day, 5 ICU beds. And
Right. So they overrun really, really, really easy.
Right. So now where do you start sending people? By the way, most of these people in Wisconsin who are having these issues, a lot of them are very old. What do you ambulance them down to Milwaukee?
Right.
And Milwaukee says, hey, who's paying for this?
I hate this. I mean, now that you bring it up, I hate this chart.
Is this Wisconsin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So keep in mind, late May was when they had that Supreme Court decision that opened the state up. And I don't know what I'll know because I'm going to be there tomorrow, but I don't know what, if anything, has been done since. So as of like July 4th, Northern Wisconsin, you didn't have to have a mask unless you walked into a hardware store or a restaurant that asked. They've been operating up there with completely open bars with no restrictions. They've been, if you Google Crandon International Off-Road Raceway in the last 3 weeks, they've put on 2 huge car races up there where people show up and camp for a week before the car race. And it's 50,000 people crammed into a small little area. And there's not a single one of them wearing a mask. So,
Well, that doesn't seem to be working very well either.
No, and that's like you look at the Illinois numbers and say, I mean, we're not fully open, but on the other hand, we're open enough and people are wearing masks and things don't look like they're getting out of control. The Wisconsin, I'm trying not to feel bad for them because I know in a lot of ways Illinois brought the problem up there, but on the other hand, like put some damn masks on.
Well, it's not. I mean, even the graph that's fairly disturbing as well. That graph. But it's not causing the problem.
People
Football
fishing.
games, the fishing and the football games they're playing in Wisconsin.
So I think I just had this discussion. I think the Packers are going to be a huge problem because, man, like if you've ever been up there, there's not an empty bar stool anywhere in Wisconsin when the Packers are playing. Like those people get out to watch the games, man, and they're showing up at little bars in the middle of nowhere and they're congregating and they're packing the bars. Some of those Northwoods bars, the custom is you get a free shot every time the Packers score, and the people come out for that stuff. So it's going to spread. It's just going to keep spreading up there until people decide they don't want it to.
And I think, what we said, maybe even a little semi tongue in cheek when they took the governor to court and said, you can't do what you're going to do. The governor said, all right, well, here we go. It seems to me, and I don't follow Wisconsin the way I'm following Illinois, but it seems to me that the governor in Wisconsin said, okay, people, this is what you wanted. And maybe there could have been a happy medium between what he was doing and just, Texasing that thing.
That's exactly what happened. It was kind of like, all right, you guys say I can't do this, here's your problem. And it was okay for a while, but now, when people are starting to go inside and schools are going back, they got an issue. I'll say like Menards, I think going back to May, Menards, which is probably one of the biggest businesses in Wisconsin, definitely the biggest hardware store, like Menards has required masks. So although it's not required statewide, there are some people that were requiring masks, but I don't know. It's hard to feel bad for them knowing that
Boy, I'll tell you, now that I've looked at these different state numbers, Wisconsin looks terrible.
They've been all over the national news, Ray. I think it's I want to say it's Marshfield is the hospital that's already over capacity. And it's one of the, like probably the last big hospital when you're going north. There's a smallish one in Rhinelander.
I mean, would Texas and Florida are better than you are? Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Florida, I haven't looked at Florida's numbers in a long time. Those actually look decent.
Well, they've been accused of manipulating their numbers since day one, though.
Yeah, but I think
that goes back to the way that our president wants to solve the problem. Fewer tests.
Well, I think depending on which way your
that guy knows what's going on. Fewer tests.
Your numbers and your deaths are getting cooked. Either they're inflating them or they're deflating them, depending on which way the state leans.
As long as they're consistent, which I know Florida hasn't been. Florida's changed the way they compute their numbers 3 or 4 times, and hopefully they've been consistent the last few months. But as long as you're consistent, you at least get an idea what direction things are going, right?
Yeah.
But one of the most troubling things about Wisconsin is I think the areas that are fueling this graph are not Milwaukee, Madison. I know that what they call the Fox Valley up through Green Bay is, but a lot of this stuff is also coming out of the poorer, more rural northern counties that have literally no health care.
Yeah, I mean the areas that are least equipped to deal with them are getting the hardest hit. Well, probably because they're the least equipped to deal with them.
Yeah, so Ray, that little blip south and west of Wausau is probably Marshfield. Down,
Right here.
yeah, is that going to be? Oh, I don't know if Marshfield's Marathon. So that's the county. Marathon is the county Wausau's in. I don't know if Marshfield's to the west in the western part of that county, but it's going to be up there.
Winnebago County's got some numbers.
That's a huge population corridor from Lake Winnebago up to Green Bay. I mean, there's a ton of people living in that area, relatively speaking.
Huh? How about that?
Yeah, it's sad, man. It's sad because the fishing is so good up there right now. I'm trying to go bass fishing next week.
Are you going fishing this weekend?
You're like it's sad because the fishing is so good.
I'm going to be mountain biking this weekend, but I'm going to try to take a pole with me.
All right.
Yeah.
Before we end this, we have to do a little congratulations. One of our members has won a major award. He may have that major award here so he can feature it on the channel. Is it close? Can we
No,
see it?
it's upstairs, and before we get too into that, we should maybe talk about it a little bit.
Okay.
Dub's a dub, baby.
Somebody who against all odds.
You know, at the very end of Rocky, the only Rocky that matters, the original one, where Rocky and Apollo are just beating the snot out of each other, and you're not quite sure who won at the end. Like, you're just not quite sure unless you're paying really close attention. You hear the bell ring, you know. It's kind of like that. Like, it's a little fuzzy who actually won what, but I know that our performance was a major accomplishment, and it was not going to be acknowledged by the yacht club. So I went ahead and I had the entire crew made some trophies.
And the entire crew, how many mates does that include?
So, all right, I'll give you a little bit more.
How many souls is that?
We raced last Wednesday, and by the time we got to the start line, it was 12 minutes after the official start. And it wasn't because we were screwing around. We just mistimed our start by 12 minutes. Okay. As we're crossing the start line, this yacht that's worth about $500,000 is already around and coming back. His entire race took 18 minutes. For the second week in a row, the people who run the race came on the radio before we got around the buoy and was like, hey, I think you guys are done. Okay. And since we'd already heard that trick, we're like, no, we're not done. You wait there till we cross the line. So we show up Saturday to do this race from Waukegan to Racine, and it's a handicap race, just like Wednesday. And since we are the slowest boat by far, we start first. And as we're gathered to go, people start talking trash about our boat. Some lady's like, are you really going to race a boat that slow? You know, and people are like, you think your boat's going to make it?
Do you think your boat's going to make it?
Boys, we got out of the harbor, we put the sails up, and we hauled it to Racine. We went out farther into the water than anybody. It was full on gas. Like, some of these people, when you're going upwind, they just set their sails out and they think it's like wine and cheese time. We were trimming sails. We were like locked in, not going to be denied. So if you know what a spinnaker is a sail that's like a kite and it just pulls your hook. We are not experienced enough to put the spinnaker up without flipping the boat over. So we don't put the spinnaker up.
So what decision did you make knowing that you don't know how to use a spinnaker? So what decision did you make based on that?
We sailed wing on wing. We put the jib off to one side, the main off to the other. And then when you do that, you can get in a situation where you get called an accidental jibe, where a wave will slack up the mainsail and it'll catch wind on the other side and slam all the way around. So we risked killing ourselves. We sailed wing on wing. We're constantly trimming sails, constantly adjusting. To make a long story short, a few boats get us at the very end. All of them had spinnakers. We beat a couple boats that had their spinnakers up. None of the other boats that didn't put up the spinnakers were even close to us. And we beat that boat that's worth $500,000.
And that's the nut of this story. That is the meat of this story.
I thought our accomplishment. So of course we got to the bar afterwards, and the lady who was talking trash about our boat is like, "Did you guys cheat? Like, what happened?" And we're like, "No,
Find your shot.
we look. I brought my A game. This ain't Wednesday night, lady. I've been dreaming about this for weeks." So
You know, you need to get your mainsail just red with the Superman S on it. And next time you start off, just tell the lady, "I'll tug on that."
How much is a Superman spinnaker with the big S?
they're all most of them are custom made. So to get
I know we're gonna have to custom make it. How much is it gonna be?
2,500 for our boat, 2,500 probably.
We can start a GoFundMe campaign for that S that's gonna hang out there being pulled by the wind.
Or a Wu-Tang spinnaker.
I'll tell you guys a little bit
Gotta
more.
go on the mainsail.
I'll tell you a little bit more about our sailing operation when we're off the air, because there's a little bit more that's not proper for public consumption.
All right.
That being said, congratulations, sir.
Indeed.
Thank you. I deserve it. You know, as an adult in athletics or competition, like, enough people aren't going to pat you on the back. So I thought we need a trophy. So I had trophies made.
Yeah. But you know what? You earned that trophy, not because you participated, but because you kicked ass. That's why you got a trophy.
Yeah, we didn't. So we talked about that, because we talked about why did we beat all these other people who whomp us on Wednesday, and it's because they were out there sleeping on a leisure ride and we were racing boats. You know, you got to get every time you step, Pat, every time you step on the field is a chance to be better, right?
If not, don't do it.
Exactly. Go cruise yourself up to Kenosha, get yourself a hot dog, and come back if you want. We're racing boats.
Gentlemen, go get yourself a hot dog. That ends our work. Our work is done here. Our work is done here. I'll see, or we'll see all of you next Thursday at 8:30. Invite your friends. Hit subscribe. If you hit subscribe, you'll be notified when I finally figure out how to get the thing onto YouTube, and then you'll be able to watch it. Other than that,
Adios, guys.
Adios, guys. I think that was best said. Good night.
So we